Hey, thanks for clicking on my video. I'm so happy you're here and I hope you enjoy.
Wish. There's not really much I could say about this film that a lot of people haven't stated already. As a whole, the movie, while not necessarily bad, you just leave the theater confused and questioning some of the things that you saw on the screen. Really questioning like, what did I just watch? Who were the characters? Where am I? What's happening? And this is a current quick summary of the film itself for people who haven't seen it. It's really hard to sum up into my own words, and this summary that they even give is kind of vague for reasons that I am going to talk about in a second. The story focuses on a 17-year-old girl named Asha in the kingdom of Rosas who makes a passionate plea to the stars in a moment of need, which leads her to meet a living magic star fallen from the sky. Something that attracts the attention of Rosas' evil ruler Magnifico as well. And I want to do something different than what I've seen so far, which is take the plot of Wish and completely rewrite the movie to be something that instead of being like a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes would be more like maybe a 70%, 75 dare I say? Or maybe even higher depending on what you personally think of what I do within this video. I want to start off by briefly mentioning some of my gripes I have with the film. I know this is not going to be all of them, but these are the most major issues that I have noticed. And then completely reading off a brand new plot summary that I created that basically fixes all the problems that I mentioned. To have a familiar film to the one we just watched, but something that is, again, better for the viewer experience. I will then be elaborating on some of the things that I couldn't really cover within this plot summary, and then y'all will let me know how you feel about what I wrote, and would you rather watch what I wrote or would you rather watch the movie that came out? Hi, my name is Liz and welcome to my channel. I cover all things nerdy, including movie reviews, show reviews, and anime. Anything in that realm of things, it's not safe for me. Something I like to dive into a lot is race, gender identity, and sexuality in film and media. I won't really be touching on it that much today in this video, but if that's something you're also really interested in seeing, let me know in the comments or consider subscribing. Without further ado, let's jump into the video, starting off with my personal issues with the plot. Number one, I felt like there were too many unexplored plot points that were brought up throughout the film but never really went anywhere. Like they never were fleshed out at all. These are including but not limited to Asha's father. It was weirdly implied that Magnifico like knew him or something like that, and I thought there would be some like malicious thing that he brings up later. It never gets brought up again. Magnifico's backstory to me was just way too vague. Like it explained why he created the kingdom, I guess, but it doesn't really explain why he went to evilness, the evil book's origins, why Magnifico even has an evil layer other than like cameo purposes for like older Disney movies, why Magnifico knows / does magic, Asha's magic at the end, and then why Asha was able to summon Star in the first place. And I know there's more than this, but those are kind of some of the ones that I was thinking about, especially while I was even watching the film. I was just like, oh yeah, wow, that's kind of interesting. I bet that's gonna go somewhere, and then it never does. So it was a little bit sad. Number two, Magnifico's arc was way too rushed within this movie. Within the scope of a 90-minute film, which seems like only a couple of days within the story's time being told in the movie, we saw Magnifico go from suddenly loving his people to becoming super power hungry, to harming his people, and then suddenly turning to dark magic. And not only that, but the people like really quickly turned on him at the end. Like I get he was actively like harming them, but it was just such a 180, I guess 360 even, that it just, it just felt really, really fast. An example of what I mean of like a more condensed story arc, especially when it comes for a villain, is in the Disney movie Mulan. In the film, we don't see the Huns like have their backstory and like maybe them like being Huns with their people that they want to be, you know, in China or whatever, like come to power. No, we just see the Huns as this evil force. Like this is probably the entirety of the Huns like arc and like story, but this is all we see. Them as evil beings who want to take over China, and that is the main antagonist. They are the main antagonist for this film, opposing Mulan and all the other characters. Imagine if within this film we saw like this entire story, like just the rise and enough, like, you know, the growth to power and all all in one film. And it's like, no, it would be way too much to see and tackle. So that's basically what I'm saying with Magnifico's story. The idea of giving up your wish and then forgetting your wish only for your wish to be granted. That was really confusing to me, because in my opinion, if I was a person who was in this, you know, situation, being offered this sort of thing, why would I do this again? Like, especially since it's such a major part of who these people are as a person, such a major part of just like your life. And then you're even hearing like how often these ceremonies are had. Because in the movie, Magnifico has these ceremonies once a month where he grants someone's wish. And you could be very much like Asha's grandfather, who is like, I think he turned 90 in the film, and he's never had his wish granted, and now he's never gonna have his wish granted, at least from what we saw in the beginning. Just to me, it does not give enough reason why these people were so willing to give up their wish to Magnifico. And then lastly, and probably my biggest gripe that I have with the plot of this film, which is the most unfortunate one too, because like, I want to know who these characters are, but I don't know these characters. Who is Asha? Who's her friends? Who's her mom? Who is Star? Who is Magnifico? Who is his wife? Many other Disney films were so much better at fleshing out a large cast of characters, especially Encanto, such a really, really good example of how to do this effectively. Mulan also did this really, really well. Both these films were able to take characters that, you know, even though they didn't even have as much screen time as the main characters, we were able to just get to know who they are as a person, and then we as an audience had the chance to fall in love with them. Which this unfortunately just felt kind of like an afterthought, and it seemed like the studio was more interested in just making some of these characters like pay homage to old Disney, like for example her friends being the Seven Dwarfs, slap the diversity label on it, and then they called it a day and they forgot to actually write characters. And so now that I've gone over all of the biggest problems to me of the plot of this film, let's get into my new film that I have written. Just a reminder that I'm not fitting all the details into the synopsis, and once I finish reading it, I'm going to go over some of the details that I wasn't able to fit in, and then that would be the entirety of how I would rewrite this story. And yes, I will be looking down to be reading the entire synopsis because it's a little bit long, but buckle up because I personally think this story would be a lot better. Our story takes place in the Kingdom of Rosas, where the benevolent King Magnifico offers a haven for all looking to live a life of peace and tranquility. In exchange for safety, you must give the king your wish, but don't worry, you'll have a chance to gain it back. While the king is the only one allowed to practice magic, Magnifico makes a deal with the people indigenous to the land that he established the kingdom, who have practiced magic all of their lives. They can continue to use their magic, but only healing magic. Now we take us to current day, where we have our main character Asha, who's a descendant of those indigenous to the land on her mother's side. She spends her day studying healing magic and researching sicknesses, obsessed with finding the cure to a sickness that took her father's life years ago. Because while her family's line has been generally successful in curing the population, this is one of the biggest medical mysteries that her people have been unable to solve. The main conflict of this film is the resurgence of the sickness. Haunted by her self-proclaimed failure, Asha accidentally uses her non-healing magic powers to summon a wishing star. Together, Star and Asha work to find the cure to the sickness plaguing the kingdom and accidentally uncover a greater evil that has been living among them all along. So that is my general synopsis of this newly made movie. Here are some of the details that I, of course, was not able to cover within this film. Magnifico would have a similar backstory that he's had before his kingdom was destroyed, and this is something that's haunted him, and this is why he's so, at least on paper, obsessed with creating such a safe haven within his kingdom. However, this is not exactly what he's doing with these wishes, and I'm going to explain that in a second. The reasons that he actually collects these wishes is because he feeds his power off of these wishes. I really like the idea of him drawing power from all of these wishes because it explains better why he's so greedy and selfish as a person. Because in this movie, his intentions were missing quite a bit, especially as to why he is such a self-absorbed person. Why is he the way he is, other than his kingdom's backstory, which is like very, very loosely, you know, talked about. This is really different from a character like Hans, for example, from Frozen, who we know towards the end, he was doing what he was doing because he knew he never had a chance of becoming king in his own kingdom. And going even off that, the sickness actually comes from people giving up their wishes. And the sickness becomes even worse as Magnifico draws in more power from these wishes. And something to keep in mind is that the indigenous people of this land, of this island, they don't have to give up their wishes. That's kind of like the transaction that they made with Magnifico. However, Asha is mixed. Her dad is not someone who's indigenous to the island versus her mom is, and that's why her dad ended up falling sick, but her mom and her are actually pretty much safe. I think it would also be a really good touch that her grandpa also gets sick in at least the current time, and that's why Asha kind of like falls into this state where she's obsessed with finding the cure to this sickness in order to cure her grandfather. But of course, this also would then expand to more people of the kingdom, and she becomes even more obsessed with finding this cure. Also, I think it would be really twisted and kind of sick if the king knew exactly why these people were getting sick the whole time. He knew the wishes were causing these people to fall ill, and Asha kind of has a moment where she's just enraged because he completely knew how to cure her father's sickness. He could have saved her father's life, but he chose not to for his own selfish reasons because he knew that the wishes were his strongest and best power source. Wouldn't that be so good and so much better? That would be so good, right? And the whole time, we as an audience, this is called dramatic irony, by the way, where the audience knows something that the characters do not. I think this would be really great if this was something that was used in this film. It's something that's done in Hercules, which is really done well. You have Meg, who we know as audiences is the villain or is a villain. Of course, she changes throughout the film. However, Hercules does not know that she's working with Hades. So I think it would be a really nice touch if we had, for example, Asha going to Magnifico for help. She's asking about the cure to the sickness. Eventually, he becomes really suspicious of what she's doing. And then, because I know people are really obsessed with the idea of having an evil couple, which apparently is what was supposed to be with this film, he has his queen, who happens to be a shapeshifter or something like that. She can also use magic, spy on Asha and what she's doing. Speaking of, and I think this will be a nice little mystery as to maybe who the queen is or something like that, Star would also be a shapeshifter who mainly takes the form of a human boy. I think this would be so much better because we get to actually communicate with Star, we get to know who he is as a person, and the whole time Star could be directly through dialogue guiding Asha into dealing with grief. I think grief would be a massive theme in this movie, and guiding her in a direction of how the sickness is actually cured. And the cure would be the wishes, which makes sense, giving people back their wishes. Which, like in the movie, if you've seen it, in the end, it's kind of like a thing that's implied that the wishes were always there on the inside, which it didn't feel supernatural in the movie that we got, but I think it would actually feel more natural in a plot like this, where in the end, people, and this will be more like magic based, kind of harness and use this magic that they've always had inside of them, which I think would fit really well within like the past 100 years of Disney, since this is what this film was supposed to be. And they use the wish that they've had inside of them all along to take down Magnifico. And this could also kind of explain why Magnifico has banned magic completely, because he knew if people kind of like harness this from the inside, what they've had inside of them all along, he would be doomed and he wouldn't be able to feed off the wishes for his own power. And towards the end, because we already at this point have established that Magnifico is a very selfish, power-hungry man and just cares about fueling his own magic, we discover through things that escalate when Magnifico destroys someone's wish, that when he destroys the wishes, he becomes even more powerful than just directly drawing power from them. And so that escalation makes so much more sense to me, and I think it would be absolutely amazing to see in the movie itself. And lastly, this one's a little bit out of place, but I feel like this definitely needs to be addressed, which is Asha's 7 friends. I know, again, that this is supposed to be the 7 dwarves, and this is a 100-year Disney film, so still having them in the movie, but giving us a chance to know the characters. I would have really appreciated a song, something in the beginning where we got to know her friends more. I think this could have been done in a similar style to the song I've Got a Dream in Tangled, where we have all these people in a bar who are just singing about what their dreams are, etc., which is ironic because, you know, this is kind of similar with like what their wish is. I think it would have been really fun to have these people kind of like singing about wishing to get their wish granted and then trying to think about all the things they would do if their wish was granted, except they just can't remember what that wish was. And then at the end, we kind of have a reprise of that song, except people actually remember what their wish is now because they harnessed it from the inside. They took it back for themselves. And I think that would be a really good learning moment for people watching this film, that a wish isn't something that could be magically granted by someone. It's something that you personally have to take hold of, take charge of, and take action towards to make sure that it actually happens for yourself. And on top of that, the movie would also have other themes like, again, overcoming grief and overcoming things like failure. One detail that I didn't write into my personal synopsis, but hey, audiences can speculate how this would fit into it if they wanted to. Having Star and Asha have some sort of romance, I personally think that would be really cute. I miss Disney romances, and so I think that would be a nice addition. I just couldn't figure out a way to write it into the story. So that was my video. Thank you so much for watching, and please, please, please let me know what you think and if I should be doing more of these. If this video is successful and if people actually like it, I have plenty of other shows and movies that I would love to do this to. So let me know your thoughts. Give this video a like if you really did like it, and consider subscribing. I really appreciate every single person for being here. And I really hope Disney can take lessons from their own book. I purposely used examples from other Disney movies to show that Disney is completely capable of not falling victim to these problems that were in this movie. So they need to go back to their roots, even roots that were only like a couple years ago, and not make these, in my opinion, avoidable mistakes again. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.